What's going on, good people? Welcome back to another episode of Trading My Live Account. Today is day number 63. It's September the 8th, 2023. We made some trades today, so let's get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about all of our key levels that we have on the chart today. So the major level that we need to pay attention to today is yesterday's closing price, and that's represented by this purple line that we have right here at 34,527. Now, I actually use this price pretty much as the anchor point and reference point throughout the entire session that I was pretty much aiming for. So let's go ahead and talk about it and get into it. Now, today is a little bit different because I traded the pre-market and I decided to just not trade the market open at 9:30. The reason I made this decision is because sometimes I feel like as a trader, you got to follow your gut instinct. And it's been a lot of days where it's been a Friday in specific where I've made a really good trade in the pre-market, and then I have a feeling as though, I feel like I'm satisfied, but I still convince myself that I need to come back and make more. But today I decided to just keep it simple. Like, look, you had a good trade. You have a feeling inside of you that says, you did what you needed to. So end the week off the right way and use this momentum as motivation going into the weekend to study hard and get better and become a better trader on Monday. So that's pretty much the mindset I had today, and I want to talk about this one trade that I made. So let's talk about trade number one. So let's actually discuss what was going on leading up into trade number one. So at 3 this morning, I like to start my analysis in the pre-market from the London session at 3 o'clock. So we were initially above yesterday's closing price, but we initially sold off and made our way all the way back down to yesterday's closing price. Now, once we got there, we continued to move lower and the downtrend continued. But once we came back to this point around 5 o'clock this morning at 34,450, we started to find a bottom where prices were not able to break past this level of support for about a good 40 minutes. But they retested this level multiple times. So the fact that you saw the level hold up for that long tells you that it's definitely some type of demand and some type of buyers down there that are supporting the market. So then after that, we see prices continue up, create their first higher low. So that's a good sign that we like to see. Now, that higher low didn't hold up for too long. We eventually came back and established these triple bottoms right here. But notice how these triple bottoms never were able to come back and retest this level of support. So that means that whatever buyers were down here were strong enough to not even let prices get back down to that level, even though we had all of this selling pressure coming back into there. It was enough buyers at that point to reverse the momentum and push the market the other way. So that's a very bullish sign that we want to pay attention to. So coming out of a triple bottom, then we see prices create a higher low where they come back to retest the same level that a higher low from before got established on. Now, that's very important also because a lot of times in the market, when you establish a higher low coming out of a downtrend, that level that gets established by that higher low has a very good chance of having other higher lows down the line get formed on that same level. Now, it doesn't always happen like this. It's not guaranteed. But when it does happen like this and you see this, it just tells you that the strength in the market is a lot stronger than what you would expect it to be because the buyers are forming multiple higher lows on the same level at different times in the market. So always remember that. So once we get that higher low, we push higher. We see prices come back up, create a swing high, but we push back down, had another higher low. So think about what's happening right now in terms of what's been going on since we came away from this support level. We moved away, created a triple bottom, created another higher low, followed by another higher low after that. So we're seeing that the buyers are in the market right now. Now, eventually the buyers were able to push prices higher all the way back up to what used to be a previous level of resistance that's still acting as such. So, when you're in the market, you always want to respect levels like that until it's time for that level to be broken. And we'll talk about that a little bit later because that's pretty much what I was looking for on trade number one. So we see prices come back down, retest that higher low that got established a little bit earlier, push up, come back, retest it one more time, and then push their way back up to the top of resistance. So really, if you look at it, this was kind of like a little small micro zone in between the top of this resistance red line at 34,505 and this low down here from the higher low support level at 34,480. Now, eventually we made our way back down to the bottom of that range, and then we broke down below it, formed a lower high. As a matter of fact, we don't have that marked up, but let's go ahead and do that. So that right there is going to represent our lower high. And from that point forward, we push down to the previous higher low that got formed from before. Now, this is something I also want to discuss, which is higher lows that were formed a little bit lower and a little bit earlier. They all have a chance of coming back to be retested. Now, there will be occasions where you see a market that respects this most recent higher low and then the uptrend continues. But sometimes you'll see prices come back down to the higher low that was established before the most recent one. And you can also find support down there at those levels, even though it might be a strong downtrend leading into those prices. You always got to remember that on the bigger term time frames, these levels probably represent something a lot more significant. So you always want to respect the trend that you're in, but you also want to be aware of those levels that you're coming back into. Because if it is a strong downtrend and you're coming back into that higher low support level, that might be an area that you want to look to take profits from. And that's always something you want to keep in mind, especially when you're trading in the pre-market, because you got to be very succinct and you got to be pretty much, what's the word, surgical when you're trading in the pre-market, because there's not as much volume. So you got to make sure you do the right things at the right time and you don't hesitate. So once we came back to that higher low, we pretty much established another range like we had up here between 505 and 480. Only difference was the prices. So we went from 480, now the bottom of the range is 465. So a nice 15-point range in the pre-market if you wanted to trade amongst that. Now eventually we came off of this double bottom. So let's go ahead and mark that up since we're looking at it. We had a double bottom right here. So this is bottom number 1. We have bottom number 2 right here, followed by a higher low. So anytime you see a double bottom that gets followed by a higher low, just understand that the probabilities of prices moving higher from that point increase dramatically. Is it always guaranteed? No, not at all. It's been times where I've seen a double bottom and a higher low actually result in a failure to the upside, and you see prices just break to the downside. So don't always think that it's guaranteed, but more likely than not, it'll lead to higher prices, because that's showing you that buyers have intention in the market and they're showing you what they want to do. So after we see this higher low, notice how we get back up to the top of the range, break above it, come back, retest it with a higher low, and then from that point forward, we're moving up, moving up, moving up. So once we establish this higher low right here, I'm saying, okay, I see yesterday's closing price up here. I have an idea that that's where I want to take that's where I want the market to go to, but I don't want to just hop in right now because I feel like it's too early. And I say it's too early because we had this level of resistance up here that had been holding up since around 4:45 this morning. So if that's been a level of resistance, I don't want to be the one to say, you know what, prices are probably pushed past that level. Not off the top. That's not what you want to look for. You want to wait for multiple signs and multiple signals. So that's pretty much what I did. So those multiple signals that I saw were the higher low that got established once we broke back above what this actually, in my opinion, if the downtrend was going to continue, this should have been a level that it actually did it from. So when prices were able to make a double bottom and actually move away from those levels down there, break above that level and establish a higher low, I said, okay, I understand what I'm looking at. The buyers are in control. So as long as I see higher highs and higher lows, I'll continue to look for the uptrend. So I see prices come all the way back up, retest this level. Now, once they got up here, they formed this higher low right here. And that's where I went long, because I saw the momentum that prices had moving up. And you can judge the momentum by the steepness of the actual uptrend. So this right here, if we go back to the support level from earlier, from this level at, let's call this 450, all the way up to this level at 505. This is an uptrend, but notice how along the way we had multiple deep pullbacks all throughout this entire swing to the upside, and then we eventually got to the upside target, right? But now compare that upswing to an upswing like this. If we started this higher low and go all the way back up to yesterday's closing price, notice how, yeah, we did have pullbacks here and there, but they were few and far in between, and when they did pull back, they were very shallow. So that tells you that the strength of the uptrend is very strong. So whenever you have a strong uptrend moving up into a level of resistance, it doesn't mean that you automatically just go long. You always have to take into consideration what the market is doing at that time period. But if you see that starting to occur, then you pretty much say, okay, I'm gonna look for my next best opportunity, and if I see any of my setups, I'm taking those. So that's pretty much the mindset I had going into this level. I saw that the trend was really strong. So once I got that higher low, I saw my setup and I took it. I went long, and I expected for prices to come back and retest yesterday's closing price. And I was able to get out right before that level, because you know me, I don't really like to hold a trade all the way up until that level. I like to get out a little bit early and lock in those profits. So that was my trade that I made for today for the most part. And even though I do have the temptation to, it's 9:30 right now, so I have the temptation to just, you know, pull back up that trade mode and go ahead and get back to it. But it's all about discipline, man. I plan on having a very good back testing session this weekend and coming back on Monday as a great trader and having a good trade on Friday. For you guys that know, you know that it just does something to your spirit where it motivates you to continue forward and just go hard all throughout the weekend so you can come back on Monday and do it again. So that's pretty much the plan that I have. Today was a good day overall. I came in, I did what I needed to do. Now, even though I'm doing the trading review, my day is not over. The day is not over until 4 o'clock. Now, from this point forward, this is where I have to practice discipline and restraint. And I think this will be a very good test of how disciplined I can be as a trader, because it's going to be very tempting to get back in the market, especially as I see it continuing to move right there in front of my face. But I got to be a disciplined trader, because I feel like that's the only way to really truly master the markets and master yourself. So day isn't over for me. I still got a long way to go, but that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. I hope you learned a little bit about yesterday's closing price and just riding the trend up until yesterday's closing price, or if it's a downtrend, you can ride it down into it. Kind of happened a little bit earlier at 4 o'clock. So yesterday's closing price can provide some very good opportunities no matter which way you want to trade, to the upside or the downside. So always remember that. I hope you guys learned a lot, because I definitely did. I'll be back on Monday. That's what, 8, 9, 10, September 11th at 9:30, somewhere between 9:30 a.m. and 9:40 a.m. But make sure you guys study hard this weekend, back test hard. Look out for my back testing videos, because I'll definitely put one up this weekend. But until then, you guys, that's all I got. So have a good weekend, study hard, and take it easy.